Good afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on where you are. This is lesson 10. I hope you're having a great start to your week. It's Monday today, and we are working on seated poses. So this is, if you look at that little graph, it starts slow. You can start with seated poses and more towards the ground. We ramp it up a little bit with more energy, and after you get to your peak pose, you come down, and this is that downward part that we're working on for the next 3 days. Next 3 days will be seated poses, the on your back poses, supine poses, and then a little bit of a talk about the importance of shavasana and rest. And then after that, we're going to get into our whiteboard sequencing, which I'm very excited about because that's with where we actually write out and develop more classes together now that we have the whole array and spectrum of how a class is developed. Very excited for that. But we still have to get through these poses. So seated poses are seated, basically. And in my vinyasa power yoga classes, I actually don't spend a lot of time in seated poses at the end of a class. This would, for me, this is about, in an hour-long class, this would be about 20 minutes to go or so. You know, at that last third marker, I come down to a couple seated poses, maybe work a little bit more core work, and then onto our back to fully relax. But we do want to do probably a few. Depending on your peak pose that you did, there can be some good options for seated poses. And if you're just doing a well-rounded class, you might want to take a couple of these options into consideration, just to do a few of these poses to really get a full body experience. So the first thing I do, I come down to seated pose. You can, let's see, oftentimes I will, and this is what we do, this is what's in the Ashtanga sequence. I oftentimes do a seated forward fold. And so we are going to go through this pose because just with any seated forward fold, it might be a little bit helpful to go through some options, especially if this is uncomfortable for you or your students. Give me a second. This is a yoga block, very helpful for poses like this. You could also use a pillow or a blanket. So if you find that, if you sit up tall in this L position, right? L position, your legs are long, knees are on the ground, and spine is tall. Abs are in, so you're feeling nice posture. You can even press into the floor, lift your chest, and start to open up and feel, this is actually called staff pose. It's just like a downward facing dog or mountain pose would be as a base pose for all of our poses moving forward. So staff pose is a base pose for all seated poses. Imagine your hands were straight up and you were flipped like a Tetris block. You would be in downward facing dog, right? Yes, you would. If you got rid of the hinge in your waist, you would essentially be in mountain pose right here. So the staff pose, mountain pose, standing, downward facing dog, and I think those are mostly like the three kind of main pivotal points where all of our poses stem from. So this is a good one to hold and notice if you're in this L position. If you find that your hamstrings are really tight, a couple things you can do. Simply bend the knees a little bit so you're able to hinge forward, or take a block and sit on it. This might not be so comfortable for straight legs just because you don't want to hyperextend the legs, so keep a little bend in them. You might even put a blanket or something underneath the knees. So block helps lift the floor away from you. This is helpful for any seated poses where your legs are crossed, or let's see, when you cross your legs, if you see your students like this, you want their knees to come down lower than the hips, at least trying to. You can also, if you're doing bound angle pose, getting into the inner thighs, if you find that knees are way up here, it does help to sit on something to bring the knees down. Now my hips are open enough that a block is actually quite uncomfortable, so I will not use a block. But it's always there for you if you need. And you'll see this in a lot of yoga studios. You'll also see a strap, which I don't have right now, but in this forward fold, if we end up folding forward, what we want to avoid hurting our lower back is avoid rounding to try to touch your toes. You see, this forward fold is coming up from my shoulders and my back. Actually, I don't feel this at all in my hamstrings, and it just doesn't feel good on my back. But I'm getting lower, and I'm trying to like get somewhere. But the point of our yoga practice is not to get somewhere. It's to feel the sensations in our body. So instead of this rounding of your back, if you find that happening for you, instead you can keep your hands by your side, push yourself forward so you've got this length, and start to feel more of the hamstrings. And this is all, you might just stay right here, even pushing forward and stay in this little hinged position. If you grab the feet, feel free to grab the feet, but no rounding in the back, so we're lifted. If you have a strap, that's where, or a towel, you can wrap it around your feet. So the feet are flexed, pulling the toes back, and you pull on the strap so your chest opens up as your shoulders roll back. So those are a few options for you in this seated forward fold, which is, again, one of those just really nice base poses. Staff pose, seated forward fold. And we do have a wide leg forward fold. And I'll show you a couple differences with wide leg forward fold. If you take your legs a little less wide, so not crazy wide, if you've got tight hamstrings, this might, or tight inner thigh muscles too, this is maybe all the wider you can get. So you'll feel this more in your hamstrings. So you can, grab your feet, or same thing, sit up tall. It's all about that tall length through your spine. If you can get into the inner thighs, you've got the super wide legs. This then is more into the hips with this little pelvic tilt. Rather than a round forward, hips go forward, belly goes forward, chest goes forward, and you hinge forward. You won't see a lot of that. I have, again, really open hips. But for the most part, maybe a little bit closer. You could even take a strap right here, wide forward fold. Then we get into different variations of single leg forward folds. We've got Janu Shirsasana, or head to knee pose. We bend one knee, which is a gentle hip opener. You might even put a block or something under your knee if you're feeling any pressure. You turn your body directly over that straight leg and reach for the foot. Same thing with that long spine. Same thing with the lifted body. And we lean forward, breathe, stay a few breaths. And you want to make sure to do both sides. If you don't have a block, you can always use something like a book, or a couple books that can lift your leg higher, or you can sit on. So same thing, other side, hold a few deep breaths. So these are a lot of forward folds, more getting into hamstrings and hips, which is what a lot of people recommend and want to work on. So these are great poses to do towards the end of class. And these ones at the end of class, you're going to hold a little bit longer. So you'll have them, and you can hold them longer because our muscles are warm. We're ready to just melt into them rather than just like quick in, quick out. It's not a warm up anymore. This is more of like you're in the deep stretch mode, so you can get deeper. Another one we could do is ankle over the knee. This is a version of Pigeon Pose. I think we might have went through Pigeon Pose, but knees on the floor, leg goes around. This you can add into the standing poses towards the end of a sequence because it's a really great stretch on the hip. If you find that you're really lean to the side and it hurts to get up here, again, a block underneath your butt. You can get up a little higher and that will help. All right, yep. Pigeon Pose. Couple versions of Pigeon Pose. You got this. A lot of people aren't able to get in this position, or this is a little intense. So we've got, like I said before, right here, and you can stay with a straight leg. Bend the knee. This is seated Pigeon Pose, bent knee version. Or there's the lying down one, which is a supine pose. You can come back and hold a figure four. So that's all getting the same muscle of a pigeon pose. After doing a bunch of forward fold, or if you've done a lot of push-ups or chaturangas in class, adding a plank, a reverse plank. This is going to reverse and strengthen and stretch the opposite muscles as you would find in this, and this, opposite. So you may want to lift and open, couple breaths, modification, knees down, hips distance apart, reverse tabletop. That's better on the knees. I talk a lot about knees because I know I've had a lot of students with bad knees. And then bring it down. This is a bound angle. I think I went through that. Pull it forward, elbows press down. Stay with a long straight spine. None of this rounding stuff. We don't want the rounding stuff. We did that in warm-up. We did the round and open. Now we're just working. If we want to get into the legs, we've got to keep that back and the core strong. Okay, we went through some core stuff, but there's lean back and lift to boat pose as you're seated. Different versions of boat pose. Twist. Yeah. What else for seated poses? There's a lot of different kinds of seated poses out there, but if we're keeping this simple, we do forward fold, reverse plank, Janu Sirsasana, maybe a pigeon pose, getting into the hips and the legs. And we've got cow face pose where you cross your legs over the other. Oh, a simple twist is also a really great thing to do while you're seated. Twists are going to be very neutralizing. So you can sit however you want in this position, or maybe it's leg over the top, bent knees, hug your knee, look back and twist, or elbow to knee, look back and twist. So you got forward fold, twist, plank, reverse plank is your back bend. You can do any kind of additional upper body work if you'd like to in these poses. A good one for side stretches is a wide leg head to knee pose. So you can even bend one knee, and this leg would be out to the side, where you turn your body to the opposite direction, reach to the inside of the foot, and come up and across. Would be a great one to hold. It's a little different than this forward fold, where your body's facing your leg. And this one is an open. You can even grab your foot if you're able. I see that one a lot in classes towards the end, or even in the beginning, depending on how long you want to hold what you're working on. Can you get it? Maybe. Yeah. So those are some seated poses to help you come down, to get deeper into the hips and hamstrings, and to allow you to feel a little bit more full body centered after your peak pose. So please go ahead and add some of those to your practice. I know in the PDF there's a list of a few poses, but there's always more that you can add. You're free to do some research and find ones, or even just listen to your body or work in your own body and see what you want to do. And so start to be in tune with your own senses instead of feeling like you need always to have to listen to someone to tell you what to do. And that's the point of this, is that you are intuitively learning how to listen to your body and watch and see the bodies of your students and know what they're feeling, so that you can help them and you can help yourself through a sequence like this. So I do have the full worksheet in today's lesson, the handout, the page 1, 2, and 3. You can start working on all three, warm up, middle of class, the peak pose, and coming down. Tomorrow will be supine poses. The next day will be Shavasana. And then we're getting into full sequencing for the next week after this, which is going to be really fun. So stay tuned, keep up to date, keep up with the emails. And even if you want to watch these the day after, because sometimes they don't go out at the same time every day, that's totally fine. Just try to keep up. It's just a few minutes a day. You got this. I believe in you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.